Hello and welcome to Cutting the Bull in the Post-Truth Apocalypse. I'm Ben and as always I'm hanging out with Mike.
Hello.
Claire.
Hey.
And V.
Hello.
You listeners, long-term listeners, you will know I love a Soviet nuclear disaster. Right? As dodgy as that sounds, I'm genuinely surprised the Soviet Union worked for as long as it did, because everything they seem to build tends to break. And when you let them have nuclear reactors, they tend to break quite badly. And this is the worst nuclear disaster you've never heard of, because it was hushed up by not only the Russians, but also the Americans.
This is the first time I've heard of it.
Yep.
Me too.
Yeah, me too, last week when you brought it up.
Yeah. First of all, thanks to new and returning listeners, and then we'll get into it.
Okay.
Shall we start from Phoenix, Arizona, Roscommon in Ireland, Detroit, Michigan, Durban in South Africa, Hastings, the United Kingdom, Berlin in Germany, Hinesville, I guess that's how you say it, in Georgia, Libourne, France.
Welcome back.
Keeps coming back. Irving, California, Niles, Michigan, Dublin, Ireland, Redmond, Washington, Detroit, Michigan, Aurora, Colorado. Oh, send me some of that free weed, please. Well, not free weed, but, you know.
Any donations kindly received, let's put it that way.
Madrid, Spain, Pahrump, Nevada, Boardman, Oregon, Guadalajara, Spain, Stevenage in the UK, Porterville in Missouri, Ashburn, Virginia, and still top is London.
Yeah.
London rules.
We're busy down there, isn't it?
Too busy.
It's a bit busy.
It's very busy this weekend.
Especially this weekend.
Dunkins.
Especially this weekend, it's well busy. Fuck that.
You know,
But thanks for listening.
I'm from the Shire.
Yeah, we're all from the Shire here.
We're all a bunch of hobbits with hairy feet.
speak for yourselves.
Too much concrete. Too busy.
I like London. When a man is tired of London, he's tired of life, Michael.
Well,
So said Samuel Pepys.
about right.
I like London. It's fascinating. It's an architectural mongrel, but it's fascinating.
It's alright to go there and be able to leave.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't live there.
But, yeah,
Well, no, I wouldn't.
Fuck being there for
No.
more than a couple of days.
I wouldn't live there unless I had like a multi-million-dollar penthouse overlooking the Thames. I'm not living in like a shitty suburb. I want something nice.
No. Oh,
you know, I'm winning the lottery. Might have a London pad, but I'm not moving there.
I don't want to live in Caxton or somewhere like
Nah,
that.
or West Ham,
Croydon.
Croydon.
More likely you'd be living under someone's stairs in the cupboard.
More than likely, yeah.
Pay about
Like
200
fucking,
quid a
Harry
week.
Potter.
That's how fucking expensive it is down there. It's ridiculous.
It is bad, it is ridiculous, but really, it's only the rent and that, or the last time I was there, it's only the rent that's nuts. Your average sort of, I don't know, beer and cigarettes is not that much more than...
I don't know.
Yeah,
I'll charge-
it's-
I'll
Come on, I thought it was about
London.
10 quid a beer.
No, it's not that. I went, last time I was there, it was like £4 a beer. In a,
That was
in a
in
normal
1936.
pub. No, it was a couple of years ago, for pre-Covid.
Can of Coke cost me £3 once in London.
Well, you got the wrong shop, haven't you? Stop going to Harrods.
It's the only place to shop in London.
I bought a can of Coke just for the bag.
I remember going there about getting on to 17 years ago. Yeah, about 17 years ago, and it cost me. I always remember it because it shocked the shit out of me. It was £27 for 3 drinks.
Hey, that'll be here nowadays.
Nah.
Yeah, but this was
Depends where you
17.
go.
But this was also 17 years ago,
Yeah, well, it's...
and it was like a bloody vodka Red Bull.
Where was you?
Granted, it was a double. It was called the Firehouse, I think it was called. It was an old.
Firehouse.
Yeah, it was an
Fire
old
station,
Yeah, it was
yeah.
an old fire station. I think it might have been called the fire station actually.
Did they leave the pole in?
They might well have done. We sat outside because it was fucking heaving.
Yeah.
But yeah, £27 for 3 drinks. I nearly shat myself.
Yeah.
And at the time, luckily, I was earning good money. But it did. Even then, I was just like, what?
Speaking of things that'll make you shit yourself, so will radiation poisoning.
Will it?
Oh yeah, you're just going to dissolve at a cellular level. So you're probably going to shit yourself. Let's go on to this. The Kyshtym disaster. The largest nuclear disaster you've never heard of. I think it's still ranked as number 2. Chernobyl being the worst. This is the second worst.
So worse than Fukushima.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
A third biggest. It's after Fukushima, sorry, nowadays.
Fukushima's number 1, I think.
I don't know. I think Chernobyl's still number one.
I might have shit that leaked into the sea.
Into the sea.
Yeah, but it might have shit that leaked out of Chernobyl. I mean, what was it? 20 Hiroshima-sized bombs every hour leaking out of that thing for a couple of days unchecked.
Yeah, well, that's over there in
It's spread all over it. Spread all over Europe.
Eastern Europe.
And the Western Europe. We got
Fukushima went into the water and it's...
That's alright, the water over there.
It's
sure
the water
we got a
cycle though,
dose.
isn't it? The land doesn't change, but the water does.
I'm sure we got a dose of some sort.
Yeah.
Probably eating radioactive fish.
Well, more than likely. Anyway, the Kyshtym disaster happened in 1957 at the height of the Cold War, deep in the eastern Ural Mountains of the Soviet Union. You got Moscow, the Ural Mountains are behind Moscow if you're coming from the west.
Yeah.
It's where they moved all their factory production to during World War II, shifted it behind the Ural Mountains brick by brick.
What, for protection?
Yeah. Stop the Germans getting it. Meant they could keep churning them T-34s out. The Soviets disclosed details to no one, not even the people affected. Even the name is a misdirection because it didn't even happen in Kyshtym. It was in the town of Chelyabinsk 65, which was renamed Ozorsk in the early 90s, and this town, according to the Soviets, did not exist, and there's a simple reason for that. It's because this was basically their Los Alamos. Los Alamos being the home of the Manhattan Project for the Americans, getting the A-bomb. This was the Soviet equivalent. So this town did not exist officially.
Right.
The causes and consequences were hidden for decades. It was built by 70,000 inmates from gulags across Russia. Forced labour.
All them know that it exists, don't they?
They would have been
They
sent
wouldn't
back to
have known
their...
what it was though, probably. They'd have just been built this wall.
And when it was sent, when it was done, they sent them back to their various gulags where they were probably shot.
I was going to say, if they even got that far.
If they even survived. Interesting little historical note is that 25,000 of these prisoners were from what was called the Russian Liberation Army, which was Russian soldiers who defected to side with the Germans in World War II. So as you can imagine, no care was given, no fucks were given for their safety.
No.
Why did they defect?
Because some of them, while they saw themselves as Russian patriots, did not like the Soviet regime, so they decided they would rather have Stalin gone.
Yeah.
And they would fight against that regime to liberate Russia from it. Or they were just Nazis. There were still Nazis in the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
Let's face it, everyone's political allegiance doesn't change overnight, does it?
Yeah. No, but it's like, what's worse, fucking fascism or Soviet regime?
There's not a lot in it.
Not really, is
No.
it?
No, there isn't. So it's the Mayak Production Association runs plutonium facility number 817 in the Chelyabinsk region of Russia. And during the Soviet Union, its location was a secret to anyone who didn't work there. The facility was built in a hurry just after World War II in order to catch up with the Americans in nuclear weapons technology, and the plant, which included 6 reactors, processed nuclear materials to develop weapons-grade plutonium. At the time, relatively little was known about the effects of radioactive materials on Soviet workers, on human workers. Even the dangers that were known were disregarded by Soviet authorities in their haste to develop the nuclear weaponry.
Cool.
The future town of Ozorsk grew up around the facility. Actually guarded by approximately 15,000 troops, so you got an effective entire Soviet army division stationed around this area, including a SAM battery, surface-to-air missile, to stop the Americans overflying too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I reckon about 15,000 troops.
So they're putting their army there as well?
Yeah, keep people out and in. Because the people who moved here to run this place, they weren't allowed to leave. This is top secret.
Yeah.
Plus they didn't want it falling into the hands.
Of the Nazis.
Yeah.
Oh no, this is after that.
That was after that.
You don't want the Americans knowing what you're doing,
Yeah.
and you don't want any defectors.
Well, it was all about the Americans at the minute now, really, wasn't it? 57 plus onwards and that, wasn't it?
That's it. So the Mayak plan built the first nuclear bomb for the Russians, but the Soviet government wanted more and faster, because there's a gap. Even though I'd imagine that in, let's say, the early 1950s, the Americans have probably got a stockpile of a few hundred nuclear weapons, but the Russians are still going to catch up.
Yeah.
This led to shortened timelines and a disregard for safety measures.
How many died?
17,000 prisoners received some kind of radiation poisoning between 1948 and 1958, and dumping of radioactive waste into nearby rivers went on between 1949 and 1952. You can see there's a little map here, and there's 7 or 8 fairly large lakes that all feed into one another with rivers. These lakes became some of the most polluted places, if not the most polluted places on Earth, because they were just dumping this shit into the rivers, in the lakes. This then caused several outbreaks of radiation sickness downstream in villages outside of the area.
Well, at first they wouldn't know what was going on with them, would they?
No, because there was absolutely no knowledge of what this stuff... Your average Russian peasant, first of all, probably doesn't even know what an atomic bomb is, and second of all, certainly doesn't know what radiation poisoning is. All they know is they're drinking the water.
From the Curies, didn't we?
Yeah, but your average Russian peasant in 1956 is not going to know a lot.
Somebody knew.
Someone might know, not many.
People at the top probably knew.
Well, they do.
They knew.
Yeah, but your average guy tilling the fields in the Ural Mountains hasn't got a clue, has he?
Nah.
On September 29th, 1957, one of the Mayax plant's cooling systems failed, and no one noticed.
Oh.
So basically you had this massive 160-ton concrete cover covering basically what was a dump for nuclear waste. Plutonium is the main factor, and it was just stuck under there, water cooled. The problem is, the water system failed, and the waste tank exploded, lifting the 160-ton concrete plug into the air. And no one was killed by that, but what did happen was a cloud of radioactive material went into the air and fell over an area of 20,000 square kilometres. Obviously, that's just getting inadequate or poorly maintained cooling systems. It's the Soviet Union.
Yep.
Actually, I've got a disk like even 300 kilometres long and 66 kilometres wide. That's how much this spread according to the wind. This still sort of nice little streak of radioactivity there. 270,000 people lived in that area. And only 11,000 were evacuated, and that took 2 years to accomplish.
That's a joke, innit?
Yeah. Those who remained were pressed into service to clean up the debris by destroying contaminated crops and livestock, and they worked without any protection from radiation, and then they were sent back to their homes. Now, I've got here how much people were taking, how much radiation people
We're receiving it
received
at its peak, or
from this after this explosion. Now, again, they denied all knowledge of it. The local newspaper just reported that the Northern Lights are a bit further south this year. Because when you get a release of radiation, it ionises with the air, and you get very pretty glows in the sky.
ooh,
It looks something they had it at Chernobyl, but it was the radiation ionising in the air, and everyone's like, ooh, ah, and then it all starts falling on you.
That's when they were standing on the bridge.
That's when they were standing on the Bridge of Death.
Yeah.
No one survived standing on the Bridge of Death. Now, we're going to measure this in curies. Okay? Estimated radiation releases at 20 million curies. To break that down, 1 curie is what's called a becquerel. 1 curie is 740 petabecquerels, and the peta means that number is 74 followed by 16 zeros.
whoa.
That's just for 1 curie.
That is 1 curie.
Okay.
Yeah? 740 petabecquerels. Healthy human body, because we all have a bit of background radiation, runs at about 8,000 becquerels.
How many curies is that?
It's not even a curie.
Oh, fuck. So 20 million is quite a lot.
Yeah, it is.
It's over 20 million times what you should have.
Yeah, this release is actually more than 90 trillion times the safe limit of radiation. Now let's move that slightly into what they call sieverts. Now a sievert measures the amount of radioactivity that goes into the human body.
Yeah.
A 1994 study by 2 doctors, Akalev and Lubchensky, estimated that 1,054 of the closest inhabitants were hit by a radiation dose of 570 millisieverts, which directly affected their bone marrow.
Oh.
The normal exposure of millisieverts is 2 to 3 a year.
How much did they get?
570. That is over 200 times the safe and normal exposure we would get.
So this is in the air and the rain, or?
It's in the air, it's in the soil, it's in the water. They basically said, kill all your livestock and bury your crops. But it's still going to get into the water table, it's still going to get into the air, it's still getting into livestock, which means it's getting into the...
Well, it's in the soil, isn't it?
Yeah.
How are you gonna, you'd have to just not use that soil for X amount of
That
time.
needs to, it's contaminated.
Yeah.
Can't be used for millions of years, probably.
Yeah, you're pretty much right, yeah, it can't be used for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years, but I guarantee you they carried on using it. Buried it, turned it over. Because it's 1957 and no one knows fucking anything.
Yeah.
And they don't care.
And they don't care. It's literally decades long, it all works its way up the food chain to us.
Yeah.
It's worth pointing out that 350 millisieverts was the criteria for evacuating people in 1986 after the Chernobyl disaster, so they just didn't even bother this time. Now, the Soviet reaction was a puzzle to many of the peasants who lived near the Mayak plant in the village of Karabolka. Farmers thought a global nuclear war began when they saw the explosion, which you probably would.
Yeah.
Within a few days, 300 of the village's 5,000 residents died of radiation poisoning.
Fucking hell.
An evacuation was planned, but only ethnic Russians were relocated.
Oh.
The remaining half of the village were ethnic Tatars who were left in place. In the more than 50 years since, many villagers are convinced they were left as an experiment.
Yeah, probably.
The cancer rate for Karabolka, now called Tatarscania, is 5 times that of an uncontaminated village.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's going to cause birth deformities and all that shit in it.
Yeah, high cancer rates,
cancer.
birth deformities, genetic disorders, all sorts. It's not good stuff. This stuff messes with you on a genetic level.
How long after did they actually work out how far this had spread from source?
Well, they say there was a study in 1994.
So quite a long time after.
Yeah.
50 years later, nearly.
Yeah, it's not good. I mean, they did literally eventually evacuate
40s.
10,000 people over 2 years. Immediately 1,000 people within 10 days. But it's not enough, is it?
No.
20 to 32 towns and villages were evacuated, and the cover-up still ensues today, in all fairness. The nearby town of Kamensk, Uralski, basically people, they didn't tell anyone, this stuff spreading upwind, and people started coming down with a strange mystery disease where their skin started falling off.
Oh, Jesus.
Radiation sickness, in other words. They didn't tell anyone. An estimated 200 died from cancer-related illnesses, although the death toll has never been released, much in the same way as Chernobyl. Only, was it 30 people died?
Something like that.
Something like that. Even though the true cost is probably hundreds of thousands of people across Europe getting cancer and dying young, only 30 people died at Chernobyl. But yeah, there's the death toll around this is still kind of kept secret. And it's one of them things you'll never know,
Yeah.
isn't it?
And that could contribute to global cancer sort
I was
of
thinking
rates.
the same thing.
You know, because back in the day, you know, when we
Well,
were
we're always
kids, it
harping on
said
about now, 1 in 2.
Well, it used to be 1 in 10, didn't it?
I think 1 in 3 now.
No, 1 in 2.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what they always harp on about.
So if 1 in 2 of us are going to get some form of cancer, now obviously we can factor in lifestyle, smoking, drinking, air pollution, whatever's in the food and water. There's a lot of this stuff still kicking around in the atmosphere.
But maybe, like Claire was saying,
It's
like this
cumulative, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a contributing factor to it.
It's even the food you eat, isn't it?
Of course it
They
is.
say too much red meat and processed foods and things. And
Processed foods in particular.
yeah.
Don't they say most of our the wheat or something we get from like Ukraine or whatever?
Yeah.
Is it wheat from
Yeah,
Ukraine?
wheat, yeah.
So that's within the same kind of area and all that's kind of connected.
Well,
How many years, you know what I mean? How far has things like Chernobyl, that travelled? So within the crops there, you'd imagine their radiation levels are probably a hell of a lot more than ours would be, you know, if we had crops. Just
Well, what you've got to look at as well is, we'll just flip to Chernobyl briefly, is they didn't really do anything for a couple of days with that, and it was a massive leak. But no one admitted to that until a guy in Sweden walked into where he worked, which is a nuclear power plant, and triggered an alarm. And he had literally a piece of ash from the reactor in Chernobyl on his boot. The radiation alarm picked that up, and they managed to identify it as being from a Russian RBMK reactor. You know, so how far did this spread? Now, cancer rate for Kaboka is 5 times that of an uncontaminated village, and other villages around the region report elevated rates of cancer, genetic abnormalities and other illnesses. The Western press knew very little about the event, although the CIA had a satellite hovering over there in the 60s, because that's where they were doing their tests, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So the home of the Russian A-bomb. And there were no concrete details until 1976, when biologist and Soviet dissident Dr. Zores Medvedev published an account of the disaster in The New Scientist. He was immediately kicked out of the Soviet Union.
Here we go again with the golden 70s, isn't it? The turning era.
Yeah?
We were talking about it the other day, when we, you know, everything sort of happened and everybody started sort of to care, didn't they? And there was sort of the science to back it up, you know, in lots of different...
But then when you got to the 80s, greed was good and it all went out the window.
Yeah.
You know, the hippies really fucking... The hippies just became the sociopaths of the today, didn't they? They're the guys who are running everything now. So, as late as 1982, scientists in the West displayed doubt that contamination in the area was due to nuclear accident. Instead, it was probably industrial pollution. However, information came out in small pieces until the fall of the Soviet Union, and it wasn't until after the fall of the Soviet Union and documents were released that it was confirmed that it was a nuclear accident. The world's first nuclear accident!
No.
Now, the Kyshtym disaster is not the only reason that Chelyabinsk is so contaminated, and that's mainly because of all the waste dumped into the river. Those who weren't evacuated in the 50s and 60s were left in place and were tended to by national radiation experts who were studying the subjects of a natural experiment to glean information on the effects of nuclear war on humans.
So even though it wasn't a planned experiment...
Might as well make the most of it.
Yeah, pretty much.
The villagers were not told of the research and were kept in the dark as to why so many of them were sick. And it was only in 1992, when the Soviet records were declassified, the nature of the experiment was uncovered. Even then, one paediatrician estimated that 90% of the village's children suffered from genetic abnormalities, and only 7% were considered healthy.
Oh.
That's incredible.
Yep. Just this picture here he's looking at there. Cows and a radiation danger warning sign at the River Tecker. There's a little herd of cows trotting behind the irradiated water in the irradiated field, eating the grass, which we're going to then take their milk and eat them in turn.
That's a modern photo.
It is.
So they're still letting cows graze on that land?
Yep.
Isn't that asking for trouble?
Yep.
Yeah.
The
Nothing
Mayak plant.
like a radioactive beef seed, though, is there?
Yeah, you know it's from Russia. Yeah, you're like, what's that weird green glow coming from my freezer? Curse you, Russian beef! The Mayak plant stopped processing weapons-grade plutonium in 1987, but still operates in Chelyabinsk, reprocessing spent nuclear fuel shipped in from all over Russia. Although the safety features of the plant have been vastly upgraded from those of the Soviet era, i.e. very little.
Glad to hear that.
Yes. The current level of danger from radiation at the plant, however, is in dispute. In other words, they ain't telling us.
Yeah.
The area around the reactor site had been called the most contaminated place on Earth, with the villagers who were affected by the disaster and the long-term industrial pollution still fighting for relocation and compensation. And we will probably never know how many people died from nuclear contamination. So for several reasons, it's difficult to pinpoint the exact extent of the contamination over half a century ago. Plus your Soviet suppression of information suppression of information and documentation makes current research on the incident extremely difficult. And even today, Russia does not welcome challenges to its official version of the story. Worth pointing out that the CIA knew about this, they did know about it, but they suppressed it because they wanted nuclear power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if they're starting to put in nuclear reactors into America, and you have this, then the public aren't going to want nuclear reactors next to their house or next to their town. So they were, well, we've got to keep this one quiet. So they suppress this as well. So you've got suppression from both sides, which does make you wonder if the Cold War wasn't just orchestrated by the people at the top making money at the situation.
That's what Ike says, isn't it?
Even Bill Cooper, Beyond the Pale Horse, he writes that the Americans and the Soviets met once a year underneath the Arctic caps in a submarine, they docked them, and they were both given, the Russians were given their script for the following year.
It's an interesting theory.
It's all just all a ploy by the military-industrial complex and the people who really run the world.
What did Shakespeare say?
Life is a stage and we're all just players.
Yeah, the world's
To
a
be
stage.
or not to be?
The world's a stage and we're all players.
Either that or pass me that pipe filled with weed while someone else writes my plays. Because there is a theory that Shakespeare may have been 3 or 4 guys, wasn't just one guy.
Ooh.
Or that he didn't write.
He probably had a staff. Yeah, you're probably right. He probably had some like secondary writers.
Yeah.
That wouldn't have been uncommon. He'd have just taken all the credit.
Absolutely. Well, I always remember being like really shocked and a little, quite frankly, hurt when I realised that all the work of the great masters of the Renaissance, Donatello, Michelangelo, Leonardo, they didn't do half of it. They sketched it out or they designed it, but they gave it to their assistants to do. So the sculptures, because if Botticelli,
Wouldn't they always finish it though?
if Botticelli wanted to sculpt all the stuff he did, he'd still be doing it now. So they would do the initial designs and how they wanted it to look, and then their apprentices would sculpt it.
But they'd finish it. They'd do.
They might do the finishing
they'd do,
touches.
like the fine details at the end.
Yeah, but
So
yeah.
instead of them sculpting a figure of a man and then doing all the detail in the face, they'd get the other guy to do the figure and say, right, leave the face blank. I'll finish that off. That's how that used to work.
But I remember being gutted when I found that out.
Yeah. I
found that out now.
robbed
Right
by
now.
that.
Yeah, me too.
You were today years old when you found that one out, then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
There you
they'd
go.
still be sculpting now.
Right.
Yeah, there'd have been a team. There'd have been like a team of
Yeah.
people sculpting out the main bit of it. And literally, that was it. And then they'd just come along and finish it off and go, there you go, put my signature on the bottom, bosh.
You know what's a shame? That the Soviet Union couldn't organise a nuclear fucking reactor properly.
Right, who's the dude that did the painting?
Michelangelo.
Do you think he did that whole thing all on his own?
I thought you were blind doing it.
Do you think he did that whole thing on his own?
He did. I think he did the majority of the Sistine Chapel, but he might have had some contractors in to help out. But then again, he was definitely in on it because he just put a load of dicks on the roof of the church. Quite a few hidden messages in that picture, actually.
Is it?
The fact that God's riding a shell that looks exactly like a human brain, suggesting that God, in fact, is in our heads.
Interesting.
There you go, Soviet nuclear disaster numero uno. Until 1986.
Yeah.
Probably the worst one, really. Because the way it was hidden, I think, tells you a story, and the fact that it's probably a lot worse.
It could be.
Because the other two were contained quick.
Chernobyl was...
Not so much, but certainly Fukushima.
Fukushima was contained.
Contained like as soon as physically possible.
Yeah.
And things like
But
that.
Chernobyl, remember, for 2 days, everyone refused to believe that the core was open.
Yeah. But with Kyshtym, there's a good chance that was left even longer before attempts were made to clean it up, because they probably didn't quite realise how...
There hasn't been any attempt. You can't clean that shit up.
Well, no, but to contain it, like it could have been a while before they
Plus
decided,
all the
oh
years.
shit, all that exposed plutonium there, we need to contain all of that, because that's just seeping out radiation
Plus all the waste that they were dumping.
Into the water,
into the
yeah.
waters. Yeah.
Which all went into the Arctic Ocean.
Yeah.
In a roundabout way, you'd like to think that things were learnt from that, so when it did happen again, i.e. Chernobyl, there was a better attempt at containing it and things.
What would make more sense would be not to build them in the first place, surely.
No.
They only last so long anyway, but they're going to be decommissioned.
Yes, but it's cheap energy, isn't
It's
it?
not that cheap.
It's cheap. It's cheaper than digging coal out the ground and having coal-fired plants.
Yeah, but
It's cheaper and
not
efficient.
in the outlay.
now with renewables,
Now with renewables, the whole thing is...
you don't need them now.
You don't need these.
Wind farms alone, wind farms and fucking tidal farms, that's all you need.
If they put solar panels in
And
the
solar
Sahara
panels,
Desert, it would
yeah.
power the world.
Yeah.
I'm not saying do that, that's just an example.
Why not though? it has no real use, does it? Just
Not
fucking
really.
do it.
Oh man, some Bedouins will have to move their tents. That's going to be the extent of that relocation, isn't it?
Yeah, but there's parts of the Sahara that are bigger than like states of America that have got nobody within them. Not even your Bedouins.
Oh yeah.
That's
Them
just solar.
lizards that lift up their feet because it's too
Yeah.
fucking
And
hard.
That's
even
just
then,
solar.
there are some like completely barren parts of
Yeah.
it that are as big as like bigger than the UK, and you think fucking
We got wind, we got water, biogas.
We're a lot better off now.
So who should stump up the money to, do such a
Everyone.
project?
everyone, all the superpowers in the world.
Every country would.
Each country that would be wanting to use the power from it chips in a bit of money.
They would. You'd have to put in the money dependent on your power usage, wouldn't you?
Hang on a minute, instead of giving £10 million a minute, or £11 million a minute, wasn't it?
To the oil companies.
To oil companies. Let's put that into renewables.
Nah,
You haven't
them
done in a
sheiks-
year.
Nah, them sheiks need their money, Mike. How are they going to buy that little
£11
Lamborghini?
million a minute.
Yeah, but how's Dubai going to give everyone Lamborghinis?
And build the highest buildings.
And, well, Mike, that's funded the football, mate.
And the shareholders, how they're going to get their
That's
massive
right, though.
profits.
That's right. If you could easily change direction of funds.
Yeah, subsidies that we're subsidising
Yeah.
the oil companies.
Who's to say that they don't want to keep the Sahara Desert as it is?
I'm not saying that. It's just an example to say that we've got the technology and we've got the room to do it.
Even maybe stick them on everyone's roof.
Yeah.
What's their argument against doing it? That's the big question.
Well, the problem is with solar panels is that they're also getting rid of them is a bit dangerous.
It does
Well,
take a few
you could always
rare
go-
earth metals to
You can go wind
produce some
farms
things,
then.
isn't it?
'Cause there's
And
plenty
battery
of wind.
storage as well, lithium, isn't it?
Yeah.
Plenty of wind in Sahara.
We can upgrade the grid, make it more viable to renewables.
It would take time and money, but there's no reason it couldn't be done. Instead of having this, the Americans had 3 Mile Island not long, in the 70s, 60s, 70s, where they had a nuclear leak in the state of New York, wasn't it? 3 Mile Island. We had the Windrush, a nuclear fire in the 50s. None of these are infallible.
Nope.
Because at the end of the day, it all comes down to cost. You want these things knocked up as cheaply and as efficiently as possible, so you can start cranking power out of them.
I'm sure Fukushima, if it had the money spent on it, it could have protected it.
They could have done something. They probably could have gone, let's have some tsunami kind of safeguard.
But they didn't put it in because it was too expensive.
And the fact that it had already had a leak as well after an earthquake a few years previously, that money wasn't spent on strengthening things. It was patching it up and getting it pumping out energy again. I don't think the Soviet Union should have been anywhere near the atom, personally.
Nothing you can do about it, there isn't.
There isn't anything you can do about it, but
When I go back in time,
when you go back in
I'll
time,
sort that out.
go back to Gorbachev, not Gorbachev. You need to go to Stalin and Khrushchev and say, look, you guys should not have atomics.
I'm on it, don't worry.
Who the fuck are you? Gulag for him.
Gulag, off to the Gulag.
She got back in time to a
Don't worry,
working
I've
Gulag.
already gone down there with some nowadays weapons and they've all been afraid because they'll be like, oh, what the fuck?
You can't take anything with you.
I fucking can.
Pete, it's the 50s. They've still got decent weapons.
They've got AK-47s for a start.
There's not much difference, is there, between now and
They ain't got
50s?
no fucking miniguns.
Yeah, they have.
Yeah, Gatling gun, yeah, they didn't funny had that tech.
Alright.
Yeah.
Laser guns.
Well, we haven't got them.
Yeah, by the time we got time travel, that's all we'll have laser guns.
Alright.
Don't worry about it.
But then you go back, get overwhelmed, they take your laser gun, and before you know, you change the timeline, and we're all living under Soviet dictatorship. Stalin's a cyborg.
in that sense, I
He's a cyborg with a little moustache.
It won't
Shoots
matter
lasers
anymore,
at his
though, will
eyes.
it? It won't matter anymore because you'll be called fucking Benchkov and you'll be Mykovsky and
Clair.
I don't think there's a bed in Russian. I don't think there is. So yeah, I just have to be called something else. But either way, it's not good. Don't let them anywhere near the atom. Bird is my thing. They shouldn't have been anywhere near it. The lunatics. You know, the Soviet Union should have known that its fucking building work was shoddy at best.
They didn't care, did they?
Well, no, they didn't. That's the problem. They didn't give a shit. I
It
mean,
was
the
all about
the safety measures weren't there.
they wanted the technology and fuck the people. Didn't matter.
yeah, the penalty didn't outweigh the price that they'd get from it at the end of the day, wasn't it? And what's the word I'm looking
The
for?
negatives outweighed the positives.
Well, the positives outweighed the negatives for them.
Yeah.
As the people making it.
But for the
obviously,
people, it
for the
wasn't,
people,
was it?
it was the other way round completely.
And what you got to look at as well is that the Soviet Union's greatest resource was always its population. That's how they won World War II, isn't it? They just threw enough bodies at the Germans until they overwhelmed them.
Yeah.
You know,
Basically what they're trying to do now.
this is what they're trying to do now, but it's not working anymore. But yeah, there you go. The greatest nuclear disaster you have never heard of. Time for some fucked up facts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Theme tune, please.
Facts, fucked up facts.
Facts!
Go on, Mike. Hit us with some knowledge.
The French National Lottery was founded by Casanova.
Ooh. I always thought he was Italian.
Casanova?
Yeah.
No, French.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Did he invent the 69? Or the Soixante-neuf? Just curious now. I have to Google Casanova later.
Apparently bees can be pessimistic.
I'd be pessimistic if I was a bee.
Yeah.
Where the fuck's all the
I've
flowers
heard
gone?
about this, like they can be depressed, like they can be.
How would you measure that? How would you measure the scale of a bee's depression? Do you put a flower in front of it, full of pollen, and if it's a bit depressed that day, I would just sort of crawl over to it and...
No, it'll fly up to it and go, I don't believe that there's any pollen in this, and then it will leave.
I've seen some pretty pessimistic bees this week landing in my pool. Yeah,
Well, they
they're
try to kill
fucking drowning.
themselves.
Suicidal bees.
It's like, oh, fuck life, there's no pollen left.
I put it on a
It's all been
flyer.
taken. Oh, splash.
They do have bouncers at the hives though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes bees will drink like
In
fermented
trade. Oh.
fruit and shit and get pissed.
Okay.
And when they come back to the hive, you're pissed. They don't let you in until you sober up.
That's probably the ones that you find in your pool then.
Yeah.
Because they go out, they go, oh, I better fucking drink some water and sober myself. Oh, some water! That'll do! Oh shit, it's a bit big.
And some of them become
bollocks.
alcoholics.
Never. I've also read somewhere that bees are attracted to the smell of chlorine
Alright.
because they know that our water, they've obviously learnt this over time, our water's got a minute bit of tap water, it's got a minute bit of chlorine in it, so they associate with that. Bit sad that though, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
In,
Not so much
another
as-
token.
Not so much I thought it was like an alcoholic bee sat outside the hive, like, they won't let me in.
Are bees black with yellow stripes?
Yeah.
Or are they yellow with black stripes?
It's not a question I've ever cared to ask myself or anybody else.
Black with yellow stripes and a little white
I
dot.
don't know. The only bees I've ever really liked are the ones from Honey I Shrunk the Kids.
Good old bumblebee.
Yeah.
Bees are ace, man. They're so friendly. And it's a shame when people are scared of bees. You should never be afraid of a bee.
Yeah. Wasps are ever.
A bee will never, ever, ever intentionally hurt a human. Just won't. Unless they're threatened. They'll never just go, oh, I'm going to hurt you.
I bet an alcoholic bee, well, if it's drunk, he's a bit angry, a bit violent.
Even then, he knows he's going to die if he stings you.
Do they know they're going to die if they sting you?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure. It must be. They must
They
know.
must have watched like, no Larry, don't do it, you'll die. I'm going to get that fucking human, and he stings him and he pulls, he's like, oh Larry, your guts
My
are out.
guts have all fallen out.
Oh, poor Larry.
Next.
Does anybody like the smell of freshly cut grass?
Yeah.
Even as a hay fever sufferer, yes.
That's a plant distress call, giving warning to all of the grass that
It's going to
It's
get its
gonna
head
get
chopped.
decapitated.
You're going to get your head chopped off, Levy! So the grass getting its head chopped off and it tells everybody else.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're about to die!
Does that make us sadists for enjoying that?
Maybe, if we like that smell,
Now we know what it is.
Yeah.
I'm going
And
to
if-
like it even more.
The freshly cut grass, nothing smells better than plant genocide in the morning.
Next.
Smells like victory.
Can anyone guess what percentage of people over 70 are still sexually active?
43.
Very close.
I'll go 37.
Closer.
40.
Claire?
That you said 37.
39.
No, I'm 31%.
Claire's the closest, 33%.
Ooh.
Disturbing and encouraging at the same time.
There's still hope when we're old, old and wrinkly.
Then again, they had it quite good, that generation, the ones who are 70 odd now. I mean, when we get to 50, we probably won't be raised a smile, no mind anything else.
Yeah. They had free love, didn't they, in the 60s?
Yeah. My dad said he'd always have been a hippie just for the free love, but he said he couldn't get on with the lack of bathing. That was his excuse for not being a hippie. He liked to bathe regularly. He was down for the free love, but he wasn't down for the not washing.
You could have bathed.
That was his excuse for not being a hippie. That's all I got for you. That's what he told me.
Some restaurant owners in China have tried an unusual method to get customers to keep coming back.
Giving them the COVID-infected bats.
How's that going to make them come back?
Cocaine in their dog.
Pete's closest. 215 restaurants have been caught lacing their noodles with opiates to addict their customers.
No fucking way.
First with the MSG.
Yeah.
That
They're
doesn't,
cranking it up.
just doesn't surprise me. The Chinese, they're another one who shouldn't have access to anything nuclear.
Oh, you have your dog noodles today, yeah. Nice with heroin. Yeah.
This reminds you of the episode of Paradise PD where they were putting heroin in the fried chicken and like the chief became a chicken addict. He was sucking cock for chicken.
That's obviously where they got the fucking idea from then.
Then again, there used to be cocaine in Coca-Cola because that made it addictive as well.
See, I'm not sure that that's genuine. I don't know whether that's true or not.
Yeah, they used to dish out
Surely
cocaine
not.
as on prescription, mate.
Surely they didn't put cocaine in Coca-Cola.
I'm not saying there was a lot of cocaine in it, but there would have been some. I mean, believe it or not,
Like
these-
Scarface stood over the fucking barrel of coke, like dropping in a big flour sack of cocaine. Oh, they like this.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Why wasn't that in the film?
Say hello to my little friend.
Speaking of my little friend, the Tour de France employs a specialist team to adapt or destroy all images of genitals that people paint on the route.
What?
Makes sense, I guess.
That's a thing.
Yeah.
So on the route, people think, oh, I'm going to draw a cock, so when the people's
Yeah.
driving past, there's going to be a big cock on the wall.
And
It's
of
gonna be
course
on
the
telly.
camera's going to keep
Yeah,
catch it,
So they have a crew that goes around. I'm wise of that now,
yeah.
so I'm going to follow the fucking crew. So once they've been around, they're like, oh, they've just cleaned up a big cock there, right? Put another one.
Yeah.
There we go.
We should get a job on that team and bring it down from the inside.
I think following that team would be funnier though, wouldn't it? Surely.
True. There's something about drawing cocks on thing that's very
Fun.
elemental in the human race, in the human comedy psyche.
It's always got to have a bit of spurtage coming out of the tip as well.
I mean, they found a dick graffitied on Hadrian's wall by a Roman soldier. The Romans were always drawing dicks on things.
Did they even
it was
do
funny.
Did they even do the cock and balls with the pubes and everything?
Yeah. Their graffiti used to be like, so I fucked Lucius's mom, she was great. Romans loved that shit. Something with drawing dicks, it's just elemental, it's grown up with us as a species.
In Italy, it is not a crime to steal food if you're hungry.
Well, that's a bit of a workaround, because how can anyone tell if you're hungry or not?
Suppose what, they take you home and see if your fridge is empty.
Maybe.
Yeah, take your circumstances into account.
You go over and say, look, I have no food in my fucking house. I was
But
stealing because I was hungry.
If you're a middle class lawyer or something and you're stealing food, you're not hungry, are you?
They're taking the
You could have been
piss.
hungry at the time.
Yeah, but
That's what I mean. So if you've got someone who's hyper obese on a little mobility scooter and for some reason they just have to keep eating, they're always hungry, that little bit of their brain doesn't switch off, they're like a Labrador. I'm hungry, and they just you get a chocolate bar off the side and start eating it. You go, can't arrest me, I'm
you
hungry.
just have fat people all day just sort of like grazing in the supermarket. Hungry. Hungry.
That's what I mean.
the cattle market, like.
Yeah.
I think it's a risky law.
Let's move there.
No one will be obese by the end of it.
You don't have to keep on taking. You haven't
I
got
have to!
every time you're
I can
hungry.
steal if I'm hungry. I'm fucking hungry. I'm stealing.
We'll be kleptomaniacs and obese.
Can you steal cars?
You gonna eat it?
Do you need to go to the drive-thru?
I needed it to go steal from McDonald's.
I'm stolen all that food.
Oh, Wendy's just brought out a new burger. I was fucking starving, alright. I had to steal that ambulance.
Yeah.
And shoot 3 fucking...
I had to steal that ice cream van. Just took it to my
lying
veins.
underneath the whipping.
Drowning ice cream. I think it's a risky law. It could be open to interpretation.
What country was that again?
Italy.
Italy.
It'd have been better if it was Hungary.
Yeah. It would have been, you're right.
Next fact.
Yeah.
A wasp named after Idris Elba is saving Mexico's broccoli crop from parasites.
Is Idris Elba known for saving broccoli? Is there a reason they named the wasp after Idris Elba? So many questions leap out at me.
Yeah.
Is it killing the other little predators and little things that munch on the broccoli?
Yeah, obviously. But what's it going to do in turn? It's like when they introduced the cane toad into Australia. Was it cane toad? I believe when they introduced that to Australia to take the population of
Crickets, locusts.
locusts or something like that, and now they're overpopulated with these cane toads, which have actually caused a lot more damage
Yeah, they have.
than the other things that would have ever caused.
Then you got to introduce monkeys.
And then, well, yeah, this is it. But
Then you got to introduce cougars.
Yeah, but this is. I should
and
have.
then you got to introduce lions,
Yeah, then bears.
and then you got to introduce elephants.
Yeah.
That's it.
Then you're overrun by elephants, which isn't a bad thing. Would do wonders for the elephant numbers.
I was trying to think of the only thing that would take out a lion or a tiger.
Can bears take out lions? Bears can take out lions
Yeah.
99% of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Genuinely, it is literally like 99% of the time because a
Easy.
lion's skull is too thin.
Well,
the bear can
bears
just
are
swipe it.
fucking-
Yeah.
Bears are just huge, isn't they?
Bears ain't gonna hit it once. It's-
We know because they
Bigfoots.
used to always fight bears and tigers
Sasquatch,
and lions.
Sasquatch to take out the bears.
that would do wonders for the Sasquatch numbers. But yeah, they did in the Old West. They used to have that fight all the time. Bear versus a tiger or something like
Oh,
They better
bear
make
versus
themselves-
fucking silverback gorilla. What would go down there, do you reckon?
I'm going for bear.
that. Bears
Yeah.
got razor claws, ain't it?
Yeah.
Gorilla's got the intelligence though and the fucking super duper strength. Imagine it punching the fucking long reach. Imagine it fucking proper clocking
We're
the
talking
bear.
grizzly bears here.
Grizzly.
Well, either way, don't matter. Fucking
does matter.
full grown biggest gorilla out there kind of thing.
Yeah, what about what bear?
Against Winnie the Pooh.
It ain't beating a grizzly.
Fully grown mama grizzly protecting its young versus a silverback gorilla. Who would win?
I don't know, see, I'd put some money down on the gorilla.
I think I'd play both sides in this so I come out
And
on
they
top.
a gorilla could pick up a fucking great half a tree as well. Massive big log and twat it, which would probably be one of its go-to things. I think that would be one of its go-to things. It'd probably swing it like a bloody baseball
Oh,
bat,
Let's just
wouldn't it?
let's
I
just
would
leave a
imagine
load
it
of weapons in this kind of arena and see if any of them adapt and improvise.
Just like drop a gorilla in there and a big grizzly.
And there's like swords and spears on the wall.
I was imagining them in a wrestling ring, sort of just what you got.
I was imagining him in the middle of a jungle or something.
Well, I started off with the forest idea, but then I moved to the death arena.
That's what I-
No, I think it would be an interesting one. It's something you never really see, I guess.
Yeah.
We need to run some kind of advanced computer program and see who come out on
But
top.
surely there are bears in some parts of the
know what?
Amazon.
I'm going to Google it.
The Amazon and places like that, where like Brazil, where
Yeah,
they
they're
found
like
these-
Kodiak bears, aren't they? They're only tiny.
They've not got big bears like
I
up
think so,
in
no.
North America and that.
Yeah.
Grizzly bear.
What's the biggest bear in South America? That'd be interesting as well.
Killer gorilla. Someone's already beat us to it on this one.
Mm.
Grizzly beats a silverback 10 times out of 10, apparently.
Here we go.
Ah.
Told you.
The
No
average
chance.
silverback weighs around 350 pounds and stands at 5.5 feet tall. Their long arms give them the reach advantage on a grizzly, but that's about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Teeth and claws
Yeah.
win that one, don't
And
they?
weight. We know there's a bear. Gotta be Close to a ton, isn't it?
Got to be 700 kilo, I suppose. Twice its weight. Probably even, best part of a ton.
Hang on, there's a problems accessing articles because for some reason we're still in the EU economic zone according to the internet.
Well, never mind.
Bear wins.
Oh,
The bear is larger and faster.
I like
Yeah.
bears.
How heavy's a bear? Did we?
It
did you say?
doesn't say.
Oh.
Silverback gorilla, 485 pounds. A full-grown grizzly, 800 pounds.
Yeah.
Twice the weight then. Yeah.
No chance. Okay, we'll finish on this fact. Santa Claus is running against Sarah Palin to be Alaska's next representative.
I think he might win.
I fucking
think
hope he
should
does.
win, yeah.
I would have consensual sex with Sarah Palin.
I think it's Santa Claus then.
So you wouldn't have non-consensual sex with her then?
No, not a
That's
rape,
alright then. That's okay
Just,
then.
if she said, if we're in the same hotel and I'm eating in the bar and she says, how do you fancy? I'm
I'm
like,
just
yeah.
not quite sure why you felt you needed to say, like, I'd have consensual sex to her. It's like, as if, like, non-consensual sex was an option.
I'm just saying that it'd be. I'm trying to navigate a tricky minefield of political correctness. Right? So I'm trying to ensure that we're both up for it. And everything's willing and okay.
Well,
and I'm not in any way undermining her value as a woman by seeing her as a sex object.
And he promises there will be no Rohypnol or GHB.
No, I'll even buy her a drink and everything. I'll even spring for the bacon sandwich after. But I do think Santa Claus will beat her in the election.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I could meet her in the hotel when she's a bit depressed. Might have more of a chance.
He is actually from North Pole, Alaska as well, and he's on the city council.
Is his actual name Santa Claus? It's like he's a bloke in a suit.
No, his name's Santa Claus.
Oh,
yeah.
fucking awesome!
He's changed his name and everything.
If he hasn't got a white beard, a large John. Of course, he's a large jolly man. He lives in America.
We might have to have a quick look for this article in a moment.
We're gonna have to. But anyway, I'd say that's the end of the show.
Yep.
Vote Santa Claus, obviously. My name's Ben. Thanks for listening. Don't drink the flavour aid, don't join a cult, and follow us on Facebook at Cutting to the Bull in the Post-Truth Apocalypse, YouTube at Apocalypse Bull, and are available on most podcasting platforms as Cutting to the Bull in the PTA.
I've been Mike, thanks for listening, peace out, may the force be with you.
And I've been Claire. Keep an open mind, but not so open that it dribbles out your ears, guys.
I've been Pete. A low shoe height.